This bar chart gives information about changing average weekly working hours by industry. It also shows different content such as average working hours and healthcare. The minimum number is related to education in orange color and is about 1. On the other hand, it shows change in hours and week 1 and 2. It also shows different numbers such as 10 and 40. The main color of the photo is blue, however, orange and white are also visible.
The combination images tells us about the change in average weekly working hours by industry. The x-axis of this graph tells us about the healthcare, technology and industries and education. The right side of this graph tells us about the changing in hours from -2 to +2 hours, whereas the right side of this graph tells us about the average working hours from 10 to 40 hours. And the working hours and the technology shows the maximum 40 hours, whereas the healthcare shows the 25 hours, and education overall the images tells us about the change in average weekly work hours by industry, which is very helpful for me.
This graph gives the information about the change in average weekly working hours by industry. It shows the different categories: technology, healthcare, industry, and education. It also shows the average working hours 0, 10, 20, 30, and 40%. It also shows the changes are -2, -1, and -0.5 and 2. It also shows the different colors like the blue and orange. I think my time is over, and I am going to the next question.
The picture shows a bar graph of change in average weekly working hours by industry. On the left side shows the working hours, which is from 0 to 40 hours, and below shows the industry like technology, healthcare, and education. Technology has the highest percentage by week 2, which is 45%. Healthcare has the highest percentage in week 1, which is 50%, and education has the highest in week 1 also, which is 35%. Overall, they gives us a very good information about working hours, especially in the industry of technology, healthcare, and education.
The image that provided information regarding the working hours and changes in the average weekly hours by the industry. It is quite important for us to know that the healthcare industry includes the highest number, which is around 40% average working hours. And another important point of discussion here is that the technology also include a highest another number, which is around more than 40%, kind of 42%. But the education is include kind of 30%, which is the average working hour for the education. All the image is very informative and give us the important information regarding average weekly working hours by different industries.
The given bar graph gives information about the change in average weekly working hours by different industries such as technology, healthcare, and education. X-axis represents different industries, whereas y-axis represents average weekly working hours with the value ranging from 0 to 40. Similarly, according to the bar graph, the maximum value is for healthcare industry with the value of above 40 in week 1 and above 40 in week 2. Overall, the given bar graph gives information about the change in average weekly working hours by industries compared to the change in hours.
The combined chart of bar chart and length chart is about change average working hours by industry. We can tell that the technology industry has increased 2 hours, the healthcare industry has decreased 2 hours, and the education has increased in 2 hours. We can also tell that the average working hours of technology increased from 40 hours a week to 41 hours a week, and the healthcare industry decreased from 45 a week to 43 a week.
The following image is a bar graph showing the change in average working weekly work hours by industry. There are three types of industry: technology, health industry, and education. And there are 2 weeks, such as week 1 and week 2, and there is a change in hours. The y axis shows the average working hours, which varies from 0, 10, 20, 30, and 40. For technology, it can be seen that almost 40 hours can be seen. For healthcare industry, more than 40 hours also can be seen. For education, it is above 30 percentage.
The picture is a bar graph that gives information about change in average weekly working hours by industry. From the graph, it is evident that healthcare industry has the highest average weekly working hours by industry, and we can see week one has the highest value than the week two. From the graph, it is also evident that education has the lowest average weekly hour working hour rate, with the first week being slightly greater than second week. Similarly, the third item compared was technology, which has the value between the healthcare and education.
The given picture is a bar graph which gives information about the change in average weekly hours by industry. The major elements in the picture are average working hours and industry and the change in hours. Similarly, the information about technology can be seen, whose value is 40 in week 1 and 45 in week 2. Furthermore, important information about healthcare industry and education can be seen. Healthcare industry is the highest value, which is 45 for week 1 and 42 for the week 2. And for the education is the highest value, which is 35 for week 1 and 32 for the week 2. Overall, it gives information about change in hours of with the 2 and minus.
The image provided is a bar graph which gives information about change in average weekly hours by industry. X-axis mentioned from technology, healthcare industry and education, while Y-axis mentioned 0 to 40 average working hours. The technologies shows that it's increased in more than 40% weekly, while healthcare industries dropped 0% and education it is more than 20%. Overall, this image illustrates change in average weekly working hours by industry.
In this picture, we get to see a comparison of a bar chart for the change in average weekly working hours by industry in technology, healthcare industry, and education. In x-axis, we get to see the three sectors, and in the y-axis, we get to see the average working hours ranging between 0 and 40. We get to understand that the blue, which is week 1, has technology is less. However, for healthcare industry and education, week 1 is more work compared to the technology sector.
It is the combined picture which gives the information about the change in average weekly working hours by industry. Looking towards the x-axis, it gives the information about the technology, healthcare industry, and education. Looking towards the y-axis of left side, it gives the information about the average working hours, which can be started from 0 and end at 40. Looking towards the right side y-axis, it gives the information about change in health. It can be started from minus 2.0 and end at minus 2.0. In this picture, technology contain more than 40%, while education contain less than 20%. Overall, it gives the information about the working hours.